Terri Murray, and good morning and welcome to, this is Turning the Housing Supply Crisis into an Opportunity. And I would like to introduce our panelists, Vince Larkins and Annie Lord and Mileyka Burgos-Flores. I see you.
Mm-hmm.
And is Annie in? Annie Lord? And Vince Larkins? Well, while we're waiting, I'm going to have Mileyka, can you introduce yourself to the group, please?
Yes, hi, good morning. My name is Mileyka Burgos-Flores. I'm the Executive Director of the Allapattah Collaborative CDC. We are a place-based nonprofit organization that is focused on basically implementing equitable development in Allapattah. What else? One of the main things that I can tell you about us is that in our aim to build wealth, we have obtained from the state of Florida our Main Street designation. So we have the Allapattah Main Street along 17th Avenue, which is helping us revive the commercial corridor. I think you're muted.
I'm sorry, has Vince joined us or Annie? Okay. Well, Mileyka, maybe we'll just, you and I can give it a go here till they join us. Can you talk a little bit about affordable housing opportunities in Allapattah?
Well, I cannot speak with you a lot about affordable housing other than the need of affordable housing in Allapattah. And it's something that needs to happen in a more concerted effort, which I don't think this is something that's happening currently in Miami-Dade County, because all the land that, the public land at least, is parceled out. And we don't have a strategy. We don't have a county strategy for public land to resolve our housing issue. And I think that that's one of the things that Miami-Dade and Mayor Levin Cava ought to consider, is how do we take all the public land that we have in Miami, all the institutional land, and all the areas that could be redeveloped, and create a master plan for the county so we can solve our housing issues. I'll give you an example. I read in the Miami Herald last week that there is a lot that is going to be redeveloped right next to the airport on 37th Avenue and 7th Street, and the rent of a 3-bedroom apartment are going to start at $2,800. I bet you that that community cannot afford that level of rent. I mean, for you to be able to pay $2,800, that should be 25% of your income at least. So what is the message that we're sending to the working families in Miami, that there's not a place for them? There's about 3 other developments that are happening in Allapattah, and the rents start at $2,500 also. This is a community that their AMI is less than $30,000. So what is the message that we're sending to the working families in Miami?
Right, I see that. Thank you, Mileyka. We've got a big problem to tackle here. And I see that Annie Lord has joined us. Hi, Annie. Can you introduce yourself to the group? And after your introduction, I see Vince has joined us, and you can introduce yourself. So Annie.
Great, thank you so much. It's great to be with you all. Sorry, I was a little late. I was shamefully technically challenged with this Zoom breakout room. I'm Annie Lord. I'm the Executive Director at Miami Homes for All. And I'm a Miami native, but I've lived and worked in a few places in community development for the last 20 years. And what Miami Homes for All is trying to do is to end and prevent homelessness across Miami-Dade. And we see that as not only addressing the needs of people experiencing homelessness today, but also the needs of people who are very vulnerable to experiencing homelessness. And that's folks who are who are earning the lowest incomes and who are really vulnerable to, economic impacts, a lot like the ones that we're seeing today as a result of the pandemic, that can really, knock them sideways. And so I think so our two initiatives in that endeavor are Affordable Housing Initiative and our Youth Homelessness Initiative. Oh, I'm afraid you're muted, Terri.
Thank you. I'm sorry. I'm just warning you, I do have 3 dogs and I don't know that the sitter is doing their job well. But anyways, here we go. Vince, please introduce yourself.
Thank you, Terri. My name is Vince Larkins. I'm the president and the chief executive officer of the Fair Housing Center of the Greater Palm Beaches. Our mission is to ensure equal housing opportunities for all people by promoting culturally diverse communities through open housing and the elimination of all barriers to that goal. I am a native of West Palm Beach, born and raised. Some people say I'm an endangered species because the majority of people who live in South Florida are either from New York and New Jersey, Ohio, and other parts of the country, as well as people who were originally born and raised in the Caribbean or South America. And I look at it as a wonderful melting pot, a melting pot that has expanded and grown and enhanced our society here in South Florida, as well as our nation. I had the distinct honor to serve on the Palm Beach County Commission on Affordable Housing for years. I think, Terri, that's where I met you. I was part of that tenure was as the chairman of the Commission on Affordable Housing. I also had the distinct honor of being appointed as one of the original board members for the Palm Beach County Community Land Trust, as well as I served on the board for the Community Land Trust Delray Beach also. I've been the former chairman of the Coalition for Independent Living Options for Palm Beach County and Martin and St. Lucie counties, as well as in my position as the president and CEO of the Fair Housing Center, which began in January of 2000. So some might ask, well, how does fair housing and affordable housing relate? Well, without affordable housing, there can be no fair housing. The Fair Housing Center can help as many people as we can, but if there's no place for people to live, then why would you need fair housing if you can't find a house? And we have partnered through the Fair Housing Center of the Greater Palm Beaches with developers and lenders and realtors, as well as nonprofit agencies in order to ensure that in our common goal, that we can address the affordable housing crisis in a comprehensive and detailed way, free from discrimination, but also free from homelessness, which is part of, I think, of all of our goal to end homelessness. And how do you do that? You get people in a home.
Thank you, Vince. Annie, can you talk about public land for public good?
Sure. So, Terri, I think one of the things, I want to put this in context if I could, which is to say that Miami Homes for All's theory of change, right? The role that I think we play in trying to create and preserve affordable housing for people here in Miami-Dade is we believe, and as many of you do, I know, that with research and data, and by building coalitions and by empowering residents, especially those who are vulnerable and are most impacted by our affordable housing crisis, that we can advocate for policies and research and resources that will dramatically increase the amount of affordable housing that we have in Miami-Dade. And is it okay, Terri, if I share my screen really quickly?
Sure, but don't ask me about the controls. I think there's a technical.
No worries. I think they told me I was allowed to do it. So if you all can see, I just want to briefly share that, Miami Homes for All published in partnership with our steering committee and with our academic partner, University of Florida, we published last year the Miami-Dade Affordable Housing Framework. And I promise I won't go into too much detail, but we did a significant, and it was funded by JP Morgan Chase, to whom we're very grateful. And I just want to sort of put this in context, right? I know that we're all pretty aware, I think, of the affordable housing crisis, but the number that we peg, that we're really focused on at Miami Homes for All, is this 250,000 number here, which is the number of Miami-Dade households that are both cost burdened, paying more than they can afford for housing costs, and earning less than $35,000 a year. And why is $35,000 a year important? Because it's about that level at which a household would be able to get by in Miami-Dade, like maybe, but without saving a penny. So it's this really vulnerable income threshold, right? Any kind of interruption in income or big unforeseen expense can cause people to lose their housing, potentially experience homelessness or fall into poverty. So I just want to lay the context there. And then what we did was to create this Greater Miami Housing Alliance out of this particular plan to build coalition around some of the priority strategies. And I'm scrolling down to focus on the priority strategies. So you've mentioned the Public Land for Public Good Alliance, and there's a lot of wonderful organizations, including, of course, Mileyka Burgos here and one of the speakers on this panel, but many people in the audience today also are involved with helping to identify, helping to move and advocate for the use of publicly owned land in Miami-Dade more strategically, so that it can be, so more of it can be created, so that more affordable housing can be created on it. And why is this important, right? We see this as a major priority strategy because there is actually a lot of publicly owned land that's underutilized across Miami-Dade County. And that's been most well mapped and analyzed with Miami using their land tool, which you can find at the Office of Civic and Community Engagement at the University of Miami. I think that basically land, we're obviously locked by ocean. And to the extent that we have land that can be redeveloped to incorporate more affordable housing, as well as other community benefits, right, for job creation and for also climate resilience, then that's something we really have to prioritize. And so, I think there's a major opportunity here, and in keeping with the theme of this panel today, we're experiencing a huge crisis, but there's a major opportunity here. And I think there's also really great momentum and traction with the new Miami-Dade County Mayor's Office, as well as the commission that is now sitting on the dais at the county level, to focus on how we can look at the full portfolio of this available land, whether it's vacant or just maybe underused, and consider strategically, how can we maximize, optimize the use of this land for the betterment of our residents today? And our Miami Homes for All has been partnering with, like I said, many people, including the Allapattah Collaborative CDC, and I want to defer to Mileyka to talk more specifically about it, but there's a very large lot that is up for redevelopment owned by the city of Miami in Allapattah in the city of Miami. And this is a very underutilized lot that is extremely close to transit. It's in the middle of the hospital district, so it's near a lot of jobs. This is prime real estate, and it is 19 acres. So a redevelopment there could potentially offer thousands of units of housing that could be at various income, affordable at various income levels, and to create a really vibrant and healthy community there. So we've been really excited to partner to try to ensure that that lot is used for the betterment of everybody and not just, the very privileged in our community.
Great. Mileyka, can you talk a little bit more about, what the resident's vision is for this parcel that Ian is referring to, and maybe kind of get down into the nitty gritty about, what you see and how you're working on the opportunity?
Yeah, sure. So, well, in order to, as part of the public coalition that we're doing, boosting up capacity for residents. I think that residents in Miami need to be more knowledgeable and understand the Disparate community, and those are things that we are aiming to do through the education and the capacity building that we want to do in the community. Right now, we are doing surveys and we are communicating with the people in Allapattah and surrounding areas from the lot that Annie just mentioned. We understand what are the needs and what are the things that they want, because many times we only think of housing and we think about these concepts in isolation. We just think about housing. We don't think about everything that housing truly means. Housing truly means the common spaces and the jobs and the transportation and everything that's gonna make those families viable. In those 18 acres and just building housing is not necessarily the only solution. Housing is part of it. And what are the other life amenities that are going to be important to community? So the thing that we're focusing on, so we can present to the city of Miami, so the community can have their rightful participation.
Thank you. As you were speaking, and Vince, maybe you can shed some light on this. I don't want to put you on the spot, but we have the same issues, in Broward, the same issues in Palm Beach County. And while we're on the issue of public land, are you familiar with Palm Beach County, who has had surplus land, and they went out with an RFP, and one of the housing authorities is actually developing that into affordable housing with support services. Can you speak to that, or other examples?
Well, I'm not familiar with the housing authority that's done that, but I do know that Palm Beach County has been very robust and very aggressive in helping provide its public land that is feasible for the Palm Beach County Community Land Trust in order for them to be able to build affordable housing. There is a lot of land in Palm Beach County, and it's my hope that that public land be expanded even more, so that other entities, not just Community Land Trust, but also working with developers and nonprofit organizations that build affordable housing, may be able to use and participate in that program. It's very, very important, because Palm Beach County is as is with all of South Florida and throughout the nation, is experiencing a lot of homelessness, and we have a lot of companies that have moved, just like in Dade and Broward, to our area, and their workers can't find affordable housing. So my agency, myself, along with our partners, are going to continue to advocate to the Palm Beach County Board of County Commissioners, as well as local municipalities in order to expand and build more affordable housing in Palm Beach County on public land.
Great. I guess I'll open this question to any of the panelists, but in addition to land, what other kind of local government incentives are needed to develop more affordable and mixed income housing? And we have to limit that to the time we have left.
Hey, Terry, I can jump in, as I'm sure my fellow panelists can, but I think that there's also, we really can't avoid the fact that the number one barrier to really creating and preserving the affordable housing that we need to meet our monumental goal, and of course I'm speaking from just the perspective of Miami-Dade, but we've established, the Greater Miami Housing Alliance has established a goal of creating or preserving 210,000 affordable homes by 2030, which is a very, very aggressive goal. But it is the fullness of the need. And so the number one barrier to us getting there is actually capital. And to a great extent, not just loans, but frankly, subsidy. And so I don't want to miss the forest for the trees. And also it's sometimes gauche to sort of jump right in and be like, listen, we need money, but that's the reality. And it is not only the county's job, it is also the state's job to address this. And it's the federal government's job to address this. But I do think that each one of those players can and should play a major role. And at the county level, we haven't had a major bond, government obligation, general obligation bond for affordable housing in quite a while. And I think we need to think about that more expansively, much more expansively. And it may take quite a while for that to become a possibility. Of course, revenues are down. We're not trying to bankrupt the county, but that's the kind of thing where, we need to start planning ahead. Of course, we need the Sadowski Affordable Housing Trust Fund at the state level to be completely funded so that the whole state can benefit from that incredibly important resource that generates every year. And then the federal government needs to really invest in, residential infrastructure. There are other opportunities, and I also don't want to be deaf to the current moment, which is that we're facing a potential evictions cliff as soon as any moratorium is up. And the Miami-Dade County moratorium on the enforcement of evictions is a critical policy step that the previous mayor and also our current mayor have taken, which is saving lives right now in this pandemic. So right now, the policy advocacy around preventing evictions, getting us out of this moment where we need the moratorium, but also like getting us to a sort of crisis resolution moment where when evictions start to proceed, they don't have that same kind of catastrophic impact. And also that the rental assistance program, right now there's, as you all know, rental assistance that's flowing through the federal government or from the federal government through our local counties. The rental assistance program that's about to hit at Miami-Dade County and also some other municipalities, it's very, very important that these programs not only work quickly in order to prevent evictions, right? They've got to be timed right. But equity here is a very important problem. We don't actually know for a fact what parts of the county have had poorer access to rental assistance that has become available in the last 6 months, and that will become available. And it's really important that we know where there's been lesser access and potential barriers so that we can rectify that going forward.
Vince or Malika, do either one of you want to speak to some other elements or missing pieces to attacking the affordable housing crisis?
I'll let you go first, Malika.
Sure. Sure. I think Annie was very thorough. Yeah, I think Annie was very thorough in the answer, but I can also add the preservation of the natural affordable house. I feel that there's so many programs that could be implemented at the county level to preserve the affordable house we currently have. One of the things that many developers, small developers, kind of place, we have a very old housing stock, but the amount of fee in order to rehabilitate that home for our family very costly. It's very difficult to sell the house at a more affordable price. So I think that being able to assist small developers so they can create homes would be one of the things, and then make those homes available for more housing assistance. And I'm talking about home ownership programs, more home ownership programs. So those are the things that is our wages. The wages in Florida are very low. So I think that they go together. How can you pay for something? You need to understand how much in the wage gap that we have would be one of the most important to affording fixing our affordable housing crisis.
Thank you.
I would say from an advocacy point of view, the strengthening of the Community Reinvestment Act is very, very crucial into us achieving our goals. The lending industry pertaining to, and I'm speaking more about the banks, have done a pretty good job. I will have to say we have worked with several lenders. I'm not going to name them because I don't want to leave anyone out. And but I will say I've worked very, very closely with nonprofit organizations as well as for-profit organizations and companies in order to address this issue. But right now, a lot of non-banking institutions are not required to provide access and work within all of our communities. And when I say all of our communities, I'm talking about all of our communities, Black, white, Latina communities, predominantly with Haitian or other communities. And it's very, very important that that act be strengthened and expanded so that we can expand and work with more and more of a robust and comprehensive plan and get capital, like Annie was saying, capital to those who are going to do something. And I will say this, and no one will say it, but I'll go ahead and say it because I'm an advocate. Some people say, hey, you're the bad guy, always the bad guy, right? Well, I'm an advocate, so I will be the bad guy sometimes. I see too many dollars going to entities that aren't doing. I don't hate to use the word anything, but when you look at on a scale that we see organizations doing good things like you, Terri, Anna, and Mileyka, it's just a waste. It has to be some way to streamline those to organizations that are actually providing those services at a high level. Okay? And that's going to take advocacy as well as the more streamlining of the process with governmental agencies, both on a federal level and a local level, to achieve that goal. And that will be good for all of us.
You're absolutely right. And it well said. I guess Mileyka, and you're alluding to it too, but just to get a little deeper into examples of the kind of developer capacity building that's needed. And I'll just open that up. And we're going to have questions and answers period at the end. But can you think of specific types of assistance? You spoke about small builders and what are their needs. I mean, capital is a given, and nonprofits building mission aligned capacity for the long haul. There's all the way from affordable housing developers to the stewards, the community land trust folks.
Well, I can tell you that I'm a big advocate of community lands. And I think that the government, the city of Miami, other governments in my county should welcome and really open about community lands. The model of a community land is created to preserve affordability. And I think that those are the type of developer that can definitely help us maintain, build also affordability because of the structure that they have. I like home ownership. I mean, not everyone is ready for home ownership, but I think the pathway to home ownership, something that we developed in that help.
We lost you.
Okay, I guess it was a comment. Is everyone having trouble with the audio, or is it spotty? Is there a tech person online that can help us out here? Can you hear me, or am I choppy?
Oh, I hear you good.
Okay. All right.
I can hear you.
Okay. All right. So we'll keep going. And Annie, I'm sorry. Sure.
I would be remiss if I didn't also include the fact that affirmatively furthering fair housing, which is a rule that the Obama administration perfected as from, and I hate to quit throwing out all these titles and stuff, but hey, this is what I do, okay? I'm on the board for the National Fair Housing Alliance, which is located in DC. And for years and years prior to that rule, I, along with members on the board from Florida, visited our senators as well as our congressional representatives in order to put a more comprehensive rule in place. Before, there was no guidelines. Basically, all the municipality had to do was just certify that they are affirmatively furthering fair housing and that they are working to not social engineer, which was this farce that was being played out over the years, but to come up with a plan when you receive those governmental dollars in order to work toward a more inclusive society. Okay? That needs to be reversed, which it is being reversed now. I mean the previous administration had put in place basically a program to just dismantle that under the auspices that it was going to ruin the suburbs. Well, I know a lot of people on this call, on this Zoom as well, that are developers and lenders and so forth, work very, very closely with the National Fair Housing Alliance as well as our agency in order to push toward keeping the affirmatively furthering fair housing rule, right? And we're very, very grateful. I mean, the groundswell of support that we received from those in the lending industry, the Realtors Association, in order to keep that rule, right, was so gratifying. Another aspect would be to expand on disparate impact, which was another area where basically it had come under attack, and there were those, well, I'm just gonna say it. The last administration was trying to get rid of it, okay? Well, I can let lenders as well as our partners in the affordable housing industry know that when an affordable housing development is being planned in a specific community, and all of a sudden there's this uproar that, oh no, we can't have affordable housing here. It's going to bring crime, and people are going to snatch babies out of people's arms and all that stuff. Well, when we went to federal court to make sure that those developments can be continued, right? Disparate impact is what we claimed was being violated. What is disparate impact? Well, I'll just say it briefly. I'm sorry, Terry, you know me, you see me up there on the day as Commissioner on Affordable Housing. I tend to be a little long-winded, but I just want to make sure what people understand. It basically allows us to look at the fact that if an affordable housing development is being developed, what will probably be the residents living there? Families with children, protected under the Fair Housing Act. Okay? Race and color, it's going to be diverse. People of different national origins, right? So it's important that we continue to advocate, and the lenders and the realtors and developers continue to support the enforcement of fair housing and the implementation of the disparate impact rule in order to make sure that developers can develop in areas where traditionally people who would like to discriminate would like to keep those developments out of those communities. And then what happens is, if you keep those developments out of communities with good transportation, good jobs, and more of a healthy lifestyle, you harm our community as a whole. And I'll stop there. I can continue on, Terry, but I don't want to get the gong bell,
Oh, I would never gong you, Vince.
Terry, could I jump in on what Vince was saying as well, which is, first of all, you're not out of, you're very humble about how you go about it, but Vince, you're 100% right. And you need, these, to achieve real racial and economic equity, which, obviously South Florida, we're terribly inequitable on both counts. And the income and wealth divide just seems to be getting larger. And we have to really reimagine what our communities are going to look like. Who's going to live there? And why is that good for everybody? And one of the strategies, the really critical strategies to achieving that new vision and sharing that new vision is a legal strategy. And I was living in Texas at the time that the Inclusive Communities lawsuit went to the Supreme Court. What was that, 2015, 2014? And yeah, and that was earth-shattering, absolutely ground development to a halt. And all the even the developers who were very aligned from the mission point of view and said, yes, we should be building in places, as you described, Vince, with job opportunities, transit, healthy, the ability to be healthy. But they were still very ambivalent because it felt like, oh my God, now we can't build literally anywhere. And eventually the kinks got worked out, and it was very disruptive for a couple of years. Not much got built. And then people, developers found a way to build, and to build according to the law. And I do think that there is a little bit of pain and transition time that we are all going to have to accept and be patient with if we really want the big change that we need. And I know we want it, and it's sometimes really hard to wait out those moments where you're like, we got to get strategic here, and that means we have to suffer a little bit through these kinds of transitions. It's also true, you asked Terry about other strategies that can help to achieve equitable development that help to create, foster and support the development community that can build and is willing to build what we need. And there's soon going to be, I think, some more information about a new pre-development product that is coming from Florida Community Loan Fund. I don't want to scoop them, but just kind of putting the bug out there for folks to be aware about it. It's a new product that is quite flexible. It's a pilot. There is not a lot of money in it just yet, but there's enough for several projects. And this would be in Miami-Dade. And it would be in particular targeted towards underserved African-American communities. And so it's a very, I think it's a really important product because it provides the working capital that a smaller developer would need in order to advance a project of smaller scale affordable housing in the neighborhoods that could be really benefited.
I just would add that, yeah, pre-development funding is very important, but in the big picture, there has to be subsidy. There is a gap. And the worst thing is to eat away at development capacity when the end goal just can't be reached because the resources are too short. So I think we all agree on that. But I had to get on my soapbox there, sorry. I guess I'm going to throw out a question, and for those who are sitting in the session, please feel free to, put your questions in the chat box, and I'm sure one of our panelists will start a lively conversation. But how do you see? I mean, we all know, the unfairness and the impacts of COVID. But how do you visualize that COVID is impacting opportunities to address this crisis? And I'll start out, just give you an example, is as a nonprofit developer, so much of the resources, and there's a huge need there, I mean, have been diverted from traditional housing development programs and have been diverted into emergency rental assistance. I'm not saying it's right, I'm not saying it's wrong. I guess, with having said that, can maybe people expound on that? And what do we do about it?
It's such a quandary. Well, I'm sorry, go ahead, Mileyka.
No, what I was going to mention is that Terry's question makes me think about something that we all know, and sometimes some people don't want to accept, and it's that housing is a right. And when we start accepting that housing is a right, and how COVID has expanded that issue, everyone is safer when everyone is sheltered, when everyone's home. You are sheltered, you are safer and I am safer because everyone is sheltered, because everyone is safe. I don't think that having a housing crisis, sometimes people become distant from it because it's not my problem. But I think that one of the phrases that became very popular during this COVID season was, we're in this together. Well, guess what? We have been in this thing of society together since the beginning of time. So how is it different now, right? So I think that the consciousness of housing is a right is something that we need to get into the mindset of, because once we understand that housing is a right, then we'll understand the importance of building more housing and using our resources. Like Annie said, there is plenty of land, which is the most expensive resource when it comes to affordable housing. If we have the land and we have the tools, what's up? And I think that a lot of that relies on policy and relies on systems that need to be updated.
Great point. So I'm going to appeal to everyone in the room. Please, feel free. Now is the time to put your questions in the chat box. I guess, does anyone have any other thoughts on what, when we get out of COVID? I mean, are we going to be behind the 8 ball, or are we going to be in front of it? And I mean, I think, in terms of supply, we have lost ground and we're losing ground.
I think that's right, Terry. I think a lot of folks are aware that the real estate market is really hot, both from the rental and ownership perspective. I think Cornell cited a figure that was, in the last 10 months, real estate prices, single family home prices have increased 22%. So, I'm sure everyone is kind of seeing that play out in their own neighborhoods, but also I think multi-family properties have appreciated enormously. And the ones that are performing have appreciated, but there's also a gentrification pressure that I think has been enhanced, which is that the properties that have struggled as a result of to stay afloat financially as a result of folks losing income and then not being able to pay the rent, those are also market opportunities for investors to acquire and then to turn an affordable property into something that can earn them more income. So I think you're right, we've probably lost quite a bit of supply. One way, early in the crisis, when we started talking with public housing and community development and about what they were committing resources to, right? Basically trying to decide whether they should continue to fund the creation of housing and the preservation of housing, or should they redirect funding towards, rental assistance. And the way that I reconciled that in my mind is it's probably going to be worse if a lot of people are displaced. And if we can keep people where they are, we'll probably do more to prevent the loss of supply at this time, just because things are happening so rapidly. That is a very personal story that a narrative I told myself when I was trying to think about what does Miami Homes for All need to advocate for right now? And it just seemed like there were so many households that were at risk of hitting the street and looking for new housing, and therefore their housing prices going up, that it just seemed like, let's just keep people where they are and we'll prevent a whole host of negative repercussions that could set us back even further.
I'd like to add that just recently, by the grace of God, there has been an extension on the foreclosure moratorium and mortgage forbearance through the end of June. And I think that is going to do a lot to keep people in their homes. While we want more affordable housing, if people are being kicked out in the street, then it just defeats our goal. And as Annie was talking about the mass evictions, millions and millions of people from all different walks of life, Black, white, Hispanic, Latina, and so forth, that are at risk. But I will say there is not more, but all of us know that the percentage of renters within the Black and Latina community is extremely high. And so that will have an impact that is going to really harm those communities, but not to discount those outside of those communities. Anyone losing their home and their place of living is going to be terrible. So I would like everyone to know that the eviction moratorium has been expanded also to the end of March. And hopefully we all need to advocate, contact our members of Congress and our senators in order to make sure that those get expanded even more. We're going to be in this crisis for a long time. I don't know about you, I'll be wearing my mask, not just this year, probably next year too, okay? And especially the Tampa Bay ones that I got after we won the Super Bowl. So I have to wear those things. I can't throw them out, okay?
I have a question from Christina. What is the bottleneck to increase affordable housing now? Is it access to land, funding, both? So does someone want to answer that?
Yeah, I mean, definitely, I think the number one barrier is funding, subsidy, and to some degree capital, but in particular subsidy, which is a really difficult thing. Like to your point earlier, Mileyka, I think somewhere in the same plane as housing is a universal right, or should be, everyone should think that way. We should also think like, because of that, it's worth paying for. And that's, I mean, unfortunately, like there, you know, the idea that we could all live healthily, stably, safely, when a huge proportion of our fellow humans are living so vulnerably and in such, oftentimes, suffering. The fact that those two things could coexist, it's just, they can't coexist. We're all at risk. And the pandemic, of course, has made that, you know, abundantly more tangible. But we're all at risk. And so we have to get over the idea that this costs money. Like every year it's going to cost money. It's not just a single shot in the arm. This is like, you got to get your vaccine every single year. So it's a very, that is the number one barrier from my perspective, from the policy standpoint. Obviously, I think that, you know, Mileyka's made this good point too. We have other resources that could very, you know, that would contribute a lot, including land. But even if you gave away land without the money, and you know this, Terri, without the money, we still couldn't have affordable housing.
Right, and to your point, I'll give you an example in Palm Beach County. You would not imagine how much land mass is not hooked up to public sewers. And I mean, it's mind-boggling, you know, it's just sitting there. So if, like Annie said, give it, you know, you can give the land away, but if you have, you know, there's not even if you wanted to, sometimes you can't hook up to sewer. It's just, it is a waste of resource. So it's really, you know, an issue that has to be thought out in the big picture, you know, and it does come down to land and money. And I'll just emphasize, as it was said before, there's the issue of preservation, preserving what you have, and that's related to COVID on a number of levels. But, you know, and I'm sure it's the same throughout all of South Florida. Think about how old the housing stock is relative to the investment in preserving it, you know, all the way down from, I mean, our agency has built hurricane replacement housing. Well, why is that? You know, because they were never hardened, you know, so it's like one step forward, 3 steps backwards, you know, so it is a constant message that has to be out there. It's a campaign, so I'll get off my soapbox. We got a few more questions. Maybe I can give each speaker sort of about a minute or two to wrap up your thoughts, unless we have questions.
Well, Terri, I wanted to mention one more thing, and it's that Annie is very right with the land and the funding, but there's 2 things, and one of them is the willingness of our elected officials to make this happen. I think that's very important. And I'll give you a very important example: inclusionary zoning. Inclusionary zoning has been something that is like speaking about the devil, because no one wants to hear about inclusionary zoning, but that is something that would impact affordable housing tremendously. So maybe inclusionary zoning and there's many developers who have done it very successfully in mixed income developments. So inclusionary zoning is something that should be considered, and it's always somehow pushed away, even at the state level. So something to think about.
I just want to piggyback on Mileyka. I'm proud to say that the Board of County Commissioners years ago passed a program that includes inclusionary zoning within Palm Beach County. So I'm really grateful for that. As an advocate, I will say that what Annie was saying about subsidy and Terri, and it's just so important. It is the main thing. If you don't have the money, it doesn't matter. Someone could give me the whole state of Florida, but if I don't have the money to develop it, nothing's going to help. Those state dollars that have been tied up, those SHIP dollars, and are just tied up and used for other things. And it behooves us, not only in our capacity with the Fair Housing Center and our developers and our lenders and so forth, all of our partners, to advocate to our state representatives. You'd be surprised, you probably wouldn't be surprised, but when I talk to our state representatives, they say we haven't heard from hardly anyone about these issues. And I'm always stunned. And also on the federal level, when I go to the different offices, they say, well, we don't hear from anybody about these issues, right? So the bottom line is that it falls to all of us. Okay? Our public officials, whether they be conservative, liberal, Republican, Democrat, or whatever, I don't care about none of that stuff. All I care about is fair housing, and I care about affordable housing and homelessness and getting people in housing. And I've had some members of Congress say, Vince, you should have told me about that, right? And well, that was like about 10 years ago. And it was amazing. That was a challenge to me, right? To get the word out, We all come from different perspectives in different parts of the country and different cultures and different economic backgrounds and so forth. But one thing we all agree, and we're all on this call, right, is that we have to make sure that every person has a roof over their head that they can afford, right? And that's not a Republican issue, that's not a Democratic issue, that's not a liberal, conservative, moderate, whatever. That's a human issue, right? And through that bond, we can do great things, not only in South Florida, but also our country. But it's up to us to make sure that state representatives and our representatives on Capitol Hill know that. Otherwise, we'll be here for the next 20 years discussing this issue.
So true.
That's very, that's so hard to follow. I feel like I should just shut up, but I want to highlight again Mileyka's program in Allapattah that she is helping to launch, which we're partnering resources for, which would be a fellow, to your point, Vince, a fellows program that creates greater capacity, that enhances or supports the capacity of local residents, a place-based endeavor to train and support and activate local residents in ensuring that their affordable housing needs are met, both in their place, in their neighborhood, but also systemically, that they have a permanent and authentic, empowered seat at the decision-making table forever, into the future, so that these decisions can be made more quickly and better, and you have people who are affected by the crisis advocating for what they need. And without that, I agree with you, Vince. We're gonna keep meeting at this summit and having the same conversation over and over. So we've got to put the resources in at the grassroots. We can't do it without them.
Thank you. And I'm just going to thank everyone for joining us this morning, and keep advocating. You know, housing is right. And I hope you enjoy the rest of the conference.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Vince, Annie, and Mileyka. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for the opportunity.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.
Bye. Enjoy the conference.